Hi, episode 9 here of season 3 of the journey towards bigger squatting, back squat, double body back squat. Here I come. So last week it was about the progress, the new program, going to 3x10 from the previous 1x20 and how that was going to work out. So the way that I'm doing it at the minute, using Delon Watkins. So if you're not kind of familiar with that, 3 sets of 10. Common misunderstanding, if you like, would be that you do 3 sets of 10 all at the same weight, and in reality, your 10 rep max. Which, if it's your 10 rep max, you shouldn't be able to do it multiple times. It should be your maximum, and you kind of spent from that. So I would do the traditional way, which is 50% of your 10 RM at the first set. The second set is 75% of your 10 RM, and then on the third set, that's your 10 RM or thereabouts. Obviously, because it's me and I have to do things in a more complicated way and I have to find a way to use VBT, I've applied a velocity loss threshold to that set of 10. And I've deliberately overreached on that load. So it probably isn't my 10 RM, it's above that. It's probably 110, 115% of my 10 RM. But the idea is I'm working towards that. I'm trying to use VBT or velocity loss threshold training to work towards that in a relatively smart and sensible way. Not trying to kill myself, but also trying to get better. So managing that balance between overreaching and fatigue. So the way I do that is using 20% velocity loss cutoff of my best rep. What does that mean? So the output unit will measure how fast my best repetition is. Take 20% off that. Once I go slower than that particular speed, that set should be done. With the caveat that I'll never do less than 5 repetitions. So if I'm having a particularly poor day, I'll grind out 5 reps at 120. But once I got past that 5 reps, whenever that red bar comes up that I've dropped off the velocity, that's when the set will come out. That means that this is a really quite variable way of training. Whereas 1x20, you're just going to do 20 repetitions, and all I was looking at was how fast did I do those 20 reps, and that was my marker for progression. This is a little bit more varied because the number of repetitions is a variable, and also the velocity of those repetitions is a variable. So that's quite a complex, and I'll try to show you what that looks like in a second. The other thing that I'm doing, which is one of the weaknesses, if you like, of the 1x20 program, is there's no kind of management of higher and lower demand weeks. There's no kind of periodization strategy, if you like. So that's what I've tried to bring into this one. So I'm doing a weekly undulating periodization. So you'll see lots of stuff about daily undulating periodization. I'm using like a weekly approach, which is like a hard week and then a lighter week. So on the harder weeks, it's the 3 sets of 10 that I've described on all lifts. On the kind of non-priority lifts, I don't tend to have a variable weight. I'd probably go around about kind of 85%-ish of my 10 RM for all 3 sets. So the first 2 sets are challenging, but not kind of maximal, and third set is pretty tough. But again, I'm not crushing myself on the assistance lifts. So on the down weeks, the lighter weeks, it's 2 sets of 10, the 50 and the 75%. And the goal of those weeks is to basically just to maintain some kind of training status, not build fatigue, let fatigue subside, and I come back fresh the following week. So that's kind of the plan. And last week was the first week that I did the kind of the deloaded week. And I wasn't sure how I would kind of process that. I wasn't sure how I feel about kind of not trying to push. And it was actually a little bit easier than I thought, because actually the 2 sessions that I tried to do that for, I was really flat. I didn't really feel like I had a hard session in me, but knowing that I just had to do 2 sets, and those 2 sets were comfortable and they were manageable, it was like, well, it wasn't the challenge. Whereas on the 1x20, like knowing you had to get out 20 repetitions at a set weight was hard. It was like there was a mental, you knew that it was going to be uncomfortable at the end, no matter how fatigued you were or weren't. Doing 20 reps of something, you're going to be breathless, you're going to be quite uncomfortable. So that was actually a pleasant surprise. And then you feel like the next week you want to come back, you want to kind of push again, because you've had that not a week off, but kind of like a nice easier week. So I'm hoping over a period of weeks and months that this program will help me keep on pushing better and not feel like I'm kind of dragging myself into the ground doing it. But let's have a look at how it's worked. So the last program, I do love a graph, you'll find I do love a graph, and I think it kind of explains what I'm trying to do, what I think is an easier way. But it was a nice and easy graph to do last time because this is how much I was moving, this is how fast I was moving it, and there we go. This one is a little bit more variable, so it's hard to show that simply in a graph, but I'm going to try my best. So on the bottom here, on the right hand side, we've simply got reps. So as I mentioned, there's a velocity loss application to this, which basically means that each given set I may not do the full 10 reps, and it's taken out of my hands. The velocity which I move the bar says how many reps I get to do. So I've done 4 workouts, maximum intensity, or the intensity I plan to do. In the first one I did 5, and the last one I've done 5, and the 2 in between I did 6. So you say that was inconsistent progress. You say relatively similar, but here's the kind of the kicker. The velocity is simply a percentage of your best repetition, not actual and absolute velocity. I've not said if it goes below 0.35 meters per second, that's my cut-off. It's a percentage of my best rep. So it's always a moving goalpost, if you like. So the reps completed isn't necessarily the greatest indicator of progress. Ideally, I want to do all 10 repetitions without having that cut off. That is the ultimate goal. But that's also an increase in strength and endurance at that particular level of strength. So what will come first is increasing maximal strength, and off the back of that, I'll increase the strength capacity at that particular level. So there's a bit of a time lag between me getting stronger and then being able to reproduce that strength multiple times. So then I thought, well, how do I then really consistently measure how I'm changing over a period of time if reps aren't that great? So this bottom blue line is the set average velocity. That's every single repetition done in that set. So you can see the first 2 that would include 5 repetitions, and then the middle 2 that would include 6 repetitions. So that is a trend line that would suggest that is getting faster. Again, you'd argue that, well, I only did 5 fast reps compared to 6 fast reps, so that's not a marker of change. That simply could just be a difference between doing 5 reps and doing 6 reps. It's a fair point. These error bars I've added on here, and again, this is where it's getting a bit busier now, so it's not always easy to see, but these error bars on this blue bar here, so these ones here, if you can see that. Again, I've just indicated the top velocity and the slowest velocity. So you can see on this far right hand side that's equal with my fastest velocity, but the slowest velocity, the velocity which the set was terminated basically, is much faster. So you can see down here it was probably in the region of kind of 0.3, so the set finished at 0.3 meters per second. Whereas over here on the right hand side, which is the latest workout, I finished the set at 0.43 meters per second. So that's actually quite a big jump in terms of when the set was cut off. If it applied this same absolute level, cut off at, so let's say 0.3, I might have done another 2 or 3 repetitions in this particular set. So it's becoming really quite variable now. So it's again getting quite confusing. So how do I still keep tracking progress considering all these different variables? What I also said was I'm never going to do less than 5 repetitions. I'm always going to do 5 repetitions. Ideally more, but the minimum is 5. So this green line here, and again, if it isn't green, I apologise, I'm colourblind, it just looks green to me, is the average velocity for the first 5 repetitions of the set. So that's, no matter how many more I do afterwards, this is just the first 5 repetitions. So that's getting up. That's progressively increasing. So that's probably the most consistent measure I've got. And then the top line, this grey line, is the 90 kilo load. So that's the kind of the sub-maximal one, and the reason why I've put that in there is because it's done every single session, where the gap in the middle here is the sessions where I've deloaded. I've always done the 90 kilos. So you can see actually, if I didn't look at the top grey bar, this is a very positive sign. I'm generally increasing, whereas these middle 2 sessions here where I deloaded, you can see actually they're by far my worst performances, and you can see signs of that in that third session. So that kind of shows you the importance of deloading, recovering, and coming back that little bit better. So that's kind of how I've taken a very old and traditional method of training, the 3x10. I mean, Dylan Watkins, if anyone wants to go back into the history of that one, they can do. It's probably back into the 50s. And just taking it into kind of the 21st century, applying velocity loss thresholds, applying kind of some intuitive kind of periodization strategies to that. And so far, just a few weeks in, so I'm not getting too far down the road on this one, it looks like it's beneficial. I feel great on it, but again, early days. But just getting to grips with being evidence-based, having data, and then understanding how the data is created and make sure it's consistent, so I can use it to make more informed decisions rather than gut feel or reactionary decisions. So that's it. Onwards and upwards, going up so far. Lifting seems to be generally on an upward trend, but again, that's relatively variable. But that's more of a byproduct rather than an intention. I'm still trying to get my runs in. I'm trying to do 3 weight sessions a week and 3 runs a week. Not really pushing the runs. It's not a run to get a better time. It's just a purely health-based run. So effectively doing 3 5Ks a week. If there's any kind of slack in the system, any kind of disturbance in my training week, that is where I'll kind of try to kind of sacrifice a session, lose a run rather than lose a weight session. But the times are typically coming down a bit now, not massively, not kind of dropping down quickly, but they are slowly kind of getting down. The runs don't feel quite as arduous and painful as they once did. So generally speaking, things are showing signs of getting better. Another couple of weeks and I'm due a load velocity test, so hopefully all this work is going to show some dividends when I come to do another kind of some max test out.